The juice hit Sarah's shirt like a slap, a cold, sticky wave of orange that spread across her chest, soaking through the thin cotton of her favorite tee. Laughter erupted around her, sharp and cruel, as the cafeteria turned into a stage for her humiliation. She stood frozen, the tray in her hands trembling, her eyes locked on the spreading stain. The world seemed to slow, the jeers of her classmates blending into a dull roar. This wasn't the first time. It wouldn't be the last. But something about today, the way the juice clung to her skin, the way her heart pounded with a mix of shame and fury, felt different. This was the moment Sarah would stop being invisible. Sarah was 16, a junior at Westview High, a place where popularity was currency and she was perpetually broke. She wasn't loud or flashy like the girls who ruled the school's social hierarchy. She was quiet, her nose often buried in a book, her dark hair falling over her face like a shield. Her family wasn't wealthy. Her mom worked double shifts at the diner, and her dad had left when she was 6. Sarah learned early to keep her head down, to avoid trouble. But trouble, it seemed, always found her. The ringleader of today's attack was Chloe, the queen bee with perfect curls and a smile that could cut glass. Chloe had been Sarah's friend once, back in middle school, when they'd shared secrets and giggled over silly things. But high school changed Chloe. She traded their friendship for a crown, surrounding herself with girls like Mia and Lauren, who followed her every move like loyal soldiers. Sarah, with her thrift store clothes and shy demeanor, became an easy target. The juice incident wasn't random. It was calculated, a public display of Chloe's power. Sarah's first challenge was swallowing the urge to cry. She could feel the tears burning behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of Chloe and her crew. She dropped her tray onto the nearest table, ignoring the clatter, and walked out of the cafeteria, her wet shirt clinging to her skin. The hallway was quieter, but the whispers followed her, carried by students who'd seen the spectacle. She made it to the bathroom, locked herself in a stall, and let out a shaky breath. Her hands shook as she tried to wipe the juice off with cheap paper towels, but the stain was stubborn, a bright orange badge of her shame. In that moment, Sarah faced her second challenge, deciding whether to keep running or to fight back. Running was easier. She could skip the rest of the day, go home, and hide in her room. But the thought of Chloe's smug face, the way she'd tossed her hair and laughed, lit a spark in Sarah's chest. She wasn't just tired of being a target. She was tired of feeling small. She thought of her mom, who worked herself to the bone and still found time to tell Sarah she was enough. Sarah wanted to believe that. She needed to. The next day, Sarah returned to school with a plan. It wasn't grand or dramatic. She wasn't going to confront Chloe in some movie-style showdown. Instead, she started small, focusing on reclaiming her space. She joined the art club, something she'd always loved but avoided because Chloe once mocked her sketches. The club was a haven, a mix of misfits and dreamers who welcomed her without judgment. There, she met Ethan, a lanky senior with kind eyes and a knack for painting. He noticed her talent immediately, praising the way she captured emotion in her drawings. For the first time in years, Sarah felt seen for something other than her status as a target. But Chloe wasn't done. When she heard Sarah had joined the art club, she escalated her attacks. She and her friends started leaving cruel notes in Sarah's locker, calling her Juice Girl, and worse. They'd snicker when she passed in the halls, mimicking the sound of liquid splashing. Sarah's third challenge was staying strong when the bullying intensified. Each note, each laugh, was a test of her resolve. Ethan noticed her withdrawing and encouraged her to keep going. "They only win if you let them," he said one day, his voice steady. Sarah clung to those words, using them to anchor herself. The turning point came during the school's annual talent show. Sarah had signed up to display her art, a series of paintings about resilience, vibrant colors depicting figures rising from darkness. She'd poured her heart into them, each stroke a piece of her pain and hope. The night of the show, she was nervous, her hands sweaty as she set up her display. Chloe and her crew were in the audience, their presence like a storm cloud. Sarah overheard them whispering, planning to sabotage her moment. They'd brought a bottle of juice, intending to recreate the cafeteria incident on stage. Sarah's fourth challenge was facing her fear head-on. As she stepped onto the stage to present her work, her heart raced. She could see Chloe in the front row, holding the bottle, a smirk on her face. For a moment, Sarah wanted to run. But then she looked at her paintings, at the figures she'd created, strong, unbroken, defiant. She took a deep breath and began to speak, her voice shaky at first but growing steadier. She talked about her art, about what it meant to keep going when the world tried to tear you down. She didn't mention Chloe or the bullying, but she didn't have to. The truth was in her work, in the way her paintings glowed with courage. The audience was silent at first, then erupted into applause. Sarah's classmates, even those who'd ignored her before, saw her in a new light. Chloe's plan faltered. She hesitated, the bottle still in her hand. Sarah's authenticity had shifted the room's energy, and Chloe's cruelty suddenly felt small. After the show, Ethan found Sarah backstage, grinning. "You did it," he said, and she smiled, feeling lighter than she had in years. But the story wasn't over. The next day, Chloe cornered Sarah in the hallway, her face twisted with anger. "You think you're something now?" she spat. Sarah's fifth challenge was confronting Chloe without becoming her. She could have lashed out, could have thrown Chloe's cruelty back in her face. Instead, she looked Chloe in the eye and said, "I'm not your punching bag anymore. I'm done letting you make me feel small." Her voice was calm, but it carried a strength that made Chloe flinch. For the first time, Chloe had no comeback. The final challenge came unexpectedly. A week later, Sarah found Chloe crying in the bathroom, curled up near a trash can. The sight was jarring. Chloe, always so polished and untouchable, looked broken. Sarah could have walked away. She could have savored the reversal. But something stopped her. She remembered her own moments in that bathroom, the way shame had felt like a weight she couldn't lift. Against her instincts, she sat down beside Chloe and asked, "Are you okay?" Chloe's story spilled out in fragments. Her parents' divorce, the pressure to be perfect, the fear of losing her status. It had all built up until she cracked. Bullying Sarah had been her way of feeling in control, but it hadn't worked. She was miserable, and Sarah's courage at the talent show had made her see it. Sarah listened, not because she forgave Chloe, but because she understood pain. She didn't offer empty reassurances or pretend they could be friends again. Instead, she said, "You don't have to be this person. You can choose differently." Chloe didn't respond, but the look in her eyes suggested something had shifted. Sarah's journey didn't end with a fairy tale resolution. Chloe didn't become her best friend, and the bullying didn't vanish overnight. But Sarah had changed. She carried herself differently, her head higher, her steps surer. She kept painting, kept showing up to art club, kept building a life where she wasn't defined by others' cruelty. The school began to shift too. Students who'd once laughed at Chloe's antics started calling her out. Sarah's courage had rippled outward, inspiring others to stand up, to be kinder. By the end of the year, Sarah's paintings were displayed in the school's front hall, a testament to her strength. She'd faced humiliation, fear, and the temptation to give up, but she'd chosen to rise instead. Her story wasn't about revenge or triumph over Chloe. It was about reclaiming herself. She'd learned that kindness didn't mean weakness, and strength didn't mean cruelty. It meant showing up, even when it hurt, and choosing to be the person she wanted to be. As Sarah walked across the stage at graduation, her mom cheering from the audience, she felt a quiet pride. She wasn't invisible anymore. She was Sarah, artist, survivor, someone who'd turned pain into something beautiful. And that was enough.